AI is not the magic solution for all of your security problems. You still have to figure out how to make it work with people. In this episode of the On-Premise IT podcast, we debate whether or not AI is not the solution to your data security problems. Welcome to the On-Premise IT podcast, the only podcast that dares to be both on topic and on location. My name is Tom Hollingsworth, and I'm a part of Gestalt IT. In each episode, we bring you the perspectives and opinions of a group of IT luminaries, experts in their fields, on a variety of enterprise IT topics. And we usually pick one topic, a premise, to stick to for the episode. I'd like to take a moment for our guests to introduce themselves before we get started with this episode's premise, starting with Richard.
Hi, my name is Richard Kenyan. I've been in the IT industry for about 25 years at this point across the variety of industries, healthcare, finance, startup turned into an IPO, as well as aerospace and government right now.
Hi, Matt Tyrer. I just like Richard, have been in the industry for nearly 25 years across IT. Started in the data center, actually on the help desk, and segued through a number of vendors, and now currently run my own competitive corner consultancy group, providing competitive intelligence, specializing in data protection, data management, and cybersecurity. So really excited about today's discussion.
Good afternoon, all. Chris Hayner, enterprise architect with a security specialization. I've been in industry for long enough that I'd rather not put a number on it, to be honest with you, but have been consultative in the Philadelphia area for quite some time.
All right. Well, thank you all very much for joining us. Let's jump into the premise for today's episode. Now, no doubt you probably heard a lot about AI in the enterprise IT space, whether it's ChatGPT or some kind of stable diffusion artistic implementation. Whatever it is, AI will fix all of your problems. It's the magic sauce that's going to make networking better and security better and wireless better. But is it? Because while AI has a lot of things that it can do, AI can't solve your data security problems. So I want to throw this kind of topic out here to our panelists to get going. What is it about data security that makes it difficult to nail down when it comes to creating things like AI-assisted software constructs?
I'll go first there, Tom. It's frankly the human element. As good as AI is and as useful as it can be in many use cases, the biggest problem still within the cybersecurity space is that user A clicked on link B and ended up downloading malware C. So so long as the human factor is always involved, in IT and data management, in just security as a whole, that's certainly a problem that AI can't solve.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I also think that another part of the human element problem is the tendency to think that there is such a thing as a one tool that will solve it all kind of situation. And every single time a new technology comes out, everybody rushes to market saying, we will fix this for you. And the reality is security in general, data security in particular, is a never ending, always moving target. And AI is going to change how we approach data security, but it is absolutely not going to fix it, especially just on its own.
So AI at its root, when you strip away all the nerd knobs, is basically advanced pattern recognition. So if you have your users doing things throughout the day and, time goes on and then something happens that's outside of the pattern, you can now introduce problems into your environment instead of solving them because you then have to correct the model. So at its core, it's still just basic pattern recognition. And as we all know, our users are very predictable.
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, there is obviously a use case, and you're seeing that, in a lot of the cybersecurity and data protection solution space where they're using that pattern recognition as a part of a way of spotting those anomalies and triggering alerts in that. But, to Chris's point, it's not the be all end all. I've always advocated, a layered approach to security strategy. There is no one tool, one ring to rule them all, if you will. You need to incorporate newer technologies into your security strategy so that you can, maintain your security posture and stay as up to date. I mean, the bad actors, the malware developers, they're advancing their programs and their solutions and their tactics on a daily basis, and so you need to keep pace and leverage the newer technologies that are available to help combat it. But I think the whole premise is, is it going to solve the problem? No, but it certainly can be a part of that solution.
So I actually want to touch on that point, Matt, because you did bring up something interesting that I think people need to kind of understand. AI is, at least at this point, very reactionary. It is looking for things. It is examining patterns. It is, working through stuff that just doesn't look right, anomaly detection. And so it can tell you, like, if someone's VPNing into your system at an off hour, or if someone is accessing data on a time when it shouldn't, or, encrypting data when they shouldn't be, which is causing your, backup efficiency to go down. But it's still, no matter what, it's always going to be reacting to what attackers are doing. And as attackers realize that people are creating defenses against their most common exploits, they're going to have to shift gears. So it's still that game of the blue team playing catch up with the red team, only now the blue team can't really, for lack of a better term, think outside the box. Do you feel like AI is always going to be one step behind a creative human mind?
I think that's a really good point. And it kind of touches on something that Richard said at the beginning. And really, the thinking that AI will solve all of our problems also misunderstands what AI is and how capable it is at the moment. Right now, everything that we've talked about has been heuristics and conditional access and EDR. And that stuff has existed for years before the concept of AI took over the front page of every newspaper on Earth. That's, a glorified Markov chain, right? It's recognizing one thing and doing something about it. That's automation less than it is AI. So by putting too much trust in the fact that AI is going to be inserted into a system and change it, when AI is really more of the same from a certain perspective in terms of predictability and looking at data and trying to make some type of decisions about yes, no access or modifying firewall rules on the fly. Because that's the other problem with trusting a system like that, is it might make changes that you don't intend on and over secure or under secure. We had that famous example of Facebook's security on-prem that was so secure that when they had a problem, they couldn't actually even get on site to fix it because their automated system had locked them out. So that's going to be a problem as well, is really fine-tuning these systems to be appropriate for the task at hand.
So another on-premise topic that leads right off into that is real-world example. A few days ago, one of our benefits analysis websites couldn't be accessed from internally on our network. We went, what the heck happened? Long story short, Cisco Talos discovered a slight change in how our users were accessing the portal and just blocked it. The slight change was we had a power outage. When we came back up, we pinged everything, and Talos went, nope, stop pinging because you're getting spammed, and cut benefits access off to our entire company. It took us a day to fix. No, not a big deal. But that product is changing rules on the fly according to what it sees, and it just happened to be a very simple test of, hey, can we get our systems back up? Just real world example right there. And people want to put this in control at the very high levels of their network and security teams, and it's like, you really want to do that? Not yet.
Well, I mean, that's kind of where the supervised learning comes in, and that's introducing the human element back into the AI models there. So, which again introduces error, or the chance for error in that, in terms of, you're basically telling the AI model or instructing it on what a good result is, what a bad result is, and when to take action or when not to, in those kind of supervised training models. But again, there's still a margin for error in that. To your point, you can't just leave it to run on its own necessarily, because situations like that, where it was a real, in terms of it was a real anomaly, yes, but in this case, there was a valid reason behind it.
And I think part of that comes from the fact that AI, for better or for worse, is still a system that is built on a set of rules. And those rules have to be clearly defined in order for the system to operate efficiently. It's what happens when we get outside of those rule sets that we run into problems. I mean, how many people have firewall rules that are specifically for executives so that they never see block pages, or their VPN always works no matter what. I mean, we've created, all of these things with, it has to be like this, it must be configured like that, and then there's like like an entire page of footnotes. Well, except for this person, or except at this time, or not in these scenarios. So is AI basically fighting a battle, being hamstrung from the start because we won't apply the rules effectively across the board to everyone? Therefore, the system is overly complex because it doesn't understand what it needs to do.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and it's an important thing to distinguish, which is the difference between a generative or generalized AI and a specific or very tightly trained AI. When people think of AI, they're thinking ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is not, in fact, trained based on rules. It has ingested a lot of information and made up the rules for itself, which is one of the reasons that you can have hilarious hallucinations where AI will give you very, very confident sounding, very incorrect information. Having a system like that is not trained is a recipe for disaster. To the point that Matt was making, I think when AI comes into the fore, it's going to be in very narrow circumstances, and it's going to be trained to answer very specific questions. And most importantly, it needs to be trained to say, I don't know. Because if it just guesses, there's going to be problems in your security posture that you don't know about until it's too late.
Yeah, it's kind of as you were saying, Chris. It's building those guardrails for it. In that case, like coming back to Richard's example, that's certainly a circumstance where you want it to alert you and say, hey, something weird is going on here, but you don't want it necessarily taking the automated action just to turn everybody off. Maybe that's where it notifies somebody and says like, hey, by the way, this weird behavior is going on. Do you want me to do something about it? And that gives you the check and balance to go in and say, yeah, you know what, we know what that is. That's actually an acceptable anomaly. Just let it go, kind of thing. But it really is about how much control and how much power do you want it in there. I don't mind the tools as they exist right now providing me with recommendations, because sometimes it may ideate outside of something I would have thought of based off of the parameters I provided for it. But other times it could be, as you said, wildly off base, and it's like, no, please do not ever do that. So I want it to give me some suggestions based off of its analysis, but I don't want it to necessarily go out and start doing the work at this stage anyway, in terms of where these models are sitting.
Yeah, so the biggest power right now of AI inside security premises is aggregating all of the different ways and all of the different products that are out there that we currently use. We, even as a small company, or me being in a large company previously, you just can't keep your eyes on everything all the time. You just, even if you have a 24/7 knock, people still miss things, not because they have lack of skills, just because the product suites are different. They're monitoring different things. They might be configured incorrectly, or they might be configured way above what anybody could normally read. It's like looking at the matrix sometimes, trying to figure out different logs. The security AI applications that hopefully are coming, I want to aggregate so we can get the, Tom's going to roll his eyes at me, but the single pane of glass. Show me everything and break it up into a few different dashboards about here's what's happening, here's what's going on, here's your anomalies, and just make that data that the AI can see human readable so we can then take action on it. I think that's the next step before we get to full Skynet.
Well, I love the direction you went on there, and that's certainly where I see a lot of positive possibilities in terms of that natural language processing of it, kind of getting it away from the matrix in terms of having to have, a university degree to understand what you're looking at in terms of the logs, the audits, the reports, and the alerts, but really getting it down to, where a generalist can look at that and say, hey, here's a problem, and actually communicate with that model back in terms of, what is the problem? Can you lock that system down? Can you do this? Instead of having to have that maybe deeper technical knowledge, especially as the tools, the landscape, the environment, the applications, everything becomes more and more fragmented and complex. You're going to end up having more of these generalists kind of in that knock role, looking at those unified dashboards and then having to drive action. So I love that you went into, that natural language processing element where AI, I think, can drive a lot more immediate benefits.
Yeah, and as the ecosystem of AI starts to change, you're going to have vastly different model sets. You're going to have vastly different parameters about internal IP and having it open to the public. And my hope is we don't keep making the same mistakes as an industry. We always do. Hey, this new product has this AI model, and this new product has this AI model, and then we're still in a fragmented ecosystem. And the vision that I just made a mention of a few minutes ago doesn't take place because nobody's using the same framework. If the entire AI industry comes out with, here's your security AI framework, and then vendors build upon that, that will make the entire industry much better than if everybody does their own little thing trying to make money off of it. Make it so people can consume it, not make it so you can profit off of it.
And which one of those do you think is more likely?
Not the one that I want. As an operator speaking. But it is a dream. I can have a dream.
Yeah, and especially as you're still seeing, different models fitting different use cases too. It's I know there were a number of vendors just in the past quarter alone that came out with their own co-pilots or their support chatbots and stuff like that. And some of them have been very explicit in terms of breaking down. Okay, you know what, we used this model for this use case, this model for that use case. So still, even between the use cases, there's no singular model. So is it perhaps fulfilling your dream through maybe integrated models that can work together, still providing that unified dashboard, but like, hey, this LLM is best suited for these cases, so I'm going to feed the queries that way, or that LLM is better for those ones, and I'm going to redirect it that way. So, maybe a best of both worlds sort of approach.
Yeah, and that's actually, tool-wise, AI might really be a benefit in a certain case in terms of like being a universal translator. If we do end up in a, very, very segmented and fragmented model of security, and there are 15 tools in everybody's toolbox, and we need to standardize, maybe that's a place where AI will help a little bit. But again, that's something that we've been trying to do in industry for years and years and years, is to have one single pane of glass, one communication area.
And I want to touch on something that you guys brought up kind of along those lines of single pane of glass. And it kind of goes back to some of the earliest tenets of security. Security in and of itself means very little unless we interact with users. And that's a big issue that we have here. AI is not just making up rules for the sake of securing the data. It also has to be able to provide explanations to users as to why this needs to happen. It needs to correlate data into a way that humans are able to digest it. How many times have we seen operators over the years who are faced with a flood of information about something that's going on, and they choose to make the wrong decision because they're either dealing with incomplete information, or worse yet, they don't understand the completeness of the information that they have? Will AI lead to humans making bad decisions because they think they know everything there is to know, because they rely too much on the AI?
I mean, I think the short answer is yes. That is absolutely going to happen. And to the point you made, it's always happened. When a tool comes out that purports to solve everything, we are overconfident with what it says. And it's only after time, and by time, I mean literally years and years, practical experience using the tools before a standard operating procedure that makes sense and is as safe as possible is established. So with these types of tools, regardless of what they are, but AI in particular, because of the speed that we imagine that it has, a lot of caution is required all the way across the board in industry.
And we've actually seen this story played out, as you said, a number of times before. Most the example that comes to mind is with cloud, where at the onset, when cloud was still a fairly new and nascent technology, there was a lot of due diligence. There was a lot of caution and analysis put into, how do I use it? Is it this use case the right use case for it? And now that it's so prevalent, a lot of those cautions and I guess the work put into actually evaluating, is it right for me, what is right for it, has kind of been lost. I remember actually talking with a number of industry analysts where the questions and queries they're receiving about cloud are problems that we solved years ago, but because it's so easy just to go and use cloud, people aren't thinking about those problems anymore. So to your point, we've seen that play out, with other technologies where that initial wariness around the technology, where good practices were kind of formulated, eventually died away, just as it became easier and easier and easier just to consume those services. And then those problems just kind of came back in.
All right. So we've talked about the fact that AI is currently at least an imperfect solution to an age-old problem. And we know that there are things that need to be improved in AI in order for us to be able to use it effectively in our jobs. But I guess the question that I have for the people out there, and maybe you can help me kind of fill in those gaps, is what should we realistically expect from AI? It's not, again, magic sauce that's going to fix every single problem we have. What can we hope for when a solution or a tool or a platform starts integrating AI that will help us either have realistic goals or ensure that the stakeholders that are buying these solutions have realistic goals?
Put it in as a natural language model to start with, as just a chatbot. Just put it into your services and put it into a firewall. So this way, instead of spending 20 minutes trying to figure out your firewall rules, you just ask it, hey, what IP has got these rules? And it just looks at the system and dumps it into chat and goes, here's all the stuff that you need. And be like, whoa, that was a time saver. And that's the key. If you make it a very useful tool to start with very simple things that, a lot of us on this podcast, as well as a lot of us listening on the call right now, end up doing on a day-to-day basis, you get addicted to it real quick. And then all of the things that you need later down the line become that much easier. You got to make it sticky to start with, or it's just going to be another phase.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it has to start simple. I think it has to, like I said at the beginning, I think you have to design it to be able to say, I don't know. And the third thing that I think we need to do and start to see more of is, let's say you build Richard's chatbot. What was the model that was used to build that chatbot? And most importantly, how is it going to evolve over time? Good answers there's got to be some type of a mechanism to promote good answers and demote bad answers so that the chatbot gets more and more accurate, not only in general in terms of understanding humanity and speaking in a natural language way, but also in its specific use case. A chatbot for a financial company is going to be very different than a chatbot for the engineering department at a bank. Wait, that's a financial company. You know what I mean?
Yep, no, we got it. And kind of the extension of that too is, as you said, what model was used, what biases, if any, may exist within the model and within the data set. The AI is trained on data. And we're starting to see a lot more focus and emphasis on data quality. You're seeing a lot of vendors going to market really pushing that drive about cleaning the data, ensuring high data quality, because garbage in, garbage out. Your chatbot, your AI engine, everything is all going to be as good as whatever data you're training it against. And so to your point, Chris, as well, the data, the analysis, the output needs to have some, reward system, if you will, in there, so that, the right answers, correct answers are retained and promoted and developed further and expanded upon. And so that, hey, was this answer helpful? No. Well, then, it can go and maybe reassess and reevaluate, in some kind of, what's the word that they use there? Adversarial network. There we go. I knew I was looking for the word there. So anyway.
Yeah. And the last point I want to make about this is we also need to take a different step, which is unique to AI. And that is figure out methods of detecting and defeating prompt manipulation. Because when you're doing something in a natural language manner is very different than selecting, from a 5-item menu and give me information about that. And we've seen plenty of stories about ChatGPT. Allegedly it's been programmed not to do things like help you write malware. But if you do prompt manipulation in the appropriate manner, it will write malware for you. And if you're doing that with a chatbot that is dealing with your company, that could be a significant problem depending on the amount of information and sensitive data it has access to.
So prompt manipulation is just the new social engineering. It really is. It's you're no longer, doing this against humans. You're now doing it against another program. And now you're going to have people writing bots specifically designed to get you the information you want against the other bot that you're trying to do. So we're in a whole new world right now that's just going to be very fascinating to watch if the proper guardrails are not implemented. You got to be very careful what data you give your model access to. And if you give it too much information, then people are going to exploit it no matter how you look at it.
But will that bot be able to select all the images with bridges in it before allowing to proceed?
Mm-hmm.
Well, as you can tell, AI is still not quite there yet. There's a lot of questions that we have to answer before we're really ready to turn it loose on all of our security woes. And just like every magic tool that we've been told over the years is the solution to all of our problems, what will eventually happen is that AI will find its niche. It will solve some of the things that we need it to solve. The attackers will adjust for what AI is capable of countering, and we'll start this whole process all over again. Because when it comes to your data security, someone's always going to want it, and someone's always going to want to protect it. And whether we're using good old-fashioned locks and keys or the most advanced Skynet system ever created, we're still going to have that struggle, and we're still going to need to figure out where the happy medium is. That'll just about do it for this episode of the On-Premise IT Podcast. I want to thank our guests for joining us. We put out a new episode about every 2 weeks. You can always find the latest episode on our website at gestaltit.com or on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/gestaltitvideo. You can also search for On-Premise IT Podcast in your favorite podcast application so you can listen to us when you're on the go. We should be back in a couple of weeks with another great premise and some more great guests. Until then, take care of yourself, and we'll see you soon.